H. Holmes's murder spree would continue until late in 1894, and his victim count was shocking. Welcome back to the very last installment of the H. Holmes story. By the time the World's Fair ended on October 30th, 1893, Holmes was pretty much over the whole murder castle thing. Holmes and his friend Benjamin Pitezel were at this point all about running their insurance scams along with various other criminal activity, which ended up taking them in all different spots across the country. And that essentially came to bite Holmes in the ass. In July of 1894, Holmes was arrested in Texas for stealing some horses and having them shipped to St. Louis. Because, it's a really dumb idea to steal a Texan's horses. Now, while in prison, Holmes met a man named Marion HEDGEPETH, who was serving a relatively long sentence. And despite what Holmes might have thought, Marion HEDGEPETH wasn't quite as stupid as he appeared, but more on that later. See, while Holmes was in prison with HEDGEPETH, the two entered into an agreement to commit an insurance scam together. Yeah, that's what they did. See, Holmes and HEDGEPETH planned an insurance scam in which Holmes would fake his own death and then collect the insurance money, a sum of about $10,000. Then, once Holmes collected the money, he would send HEDGEPETH $500 for his part in the scheme. Once he was bailed out of prison, Holmes did in fact attempt this insurance scam. However, the insurance company was suspicious and refused to pay him out. Now, with the plan to collect money on his own death being thwarted, H. Holmes and Benjamin Pitezel set out on a new insurance scam. This time around, Holmes and Pitezel planned to fake Pitezel's death and collect insurance money on him. Now, this whole scam was supposed to go down in Philadelphia, where Pitezel would present himself as an inventor named B.F. Perry. The plan was for Pitezel to be found dead and disfigured after a lab accident. Holmes, as usual, planned to supply the corpse that would take the place of B.F. Perry. Unfortunately for Pitezel, there was some hiccups in the plan, and so Holmes just killed him instead. So Holmes collected that insurance money and went on to prey on Pitezel's wife. Now, I wasn't there, so I can't tell you exactly what happened, but somehow Holmes convinced Mrs. Pitezel to let 3 of her 5 kids in his custody, and he took them wherever he felt like. Mrs. Pitezel, of course, had no idea that her husband and her baby daddy was dead. So Holmes took Nellie, Alice, and Howard zigzagging across the United States and even up into Canada. And all the while, Holmes was dragging Mrs. Pitezel and her other 2 children on a parallel route across the United States. The whole time they were traveling, Alice was writing letters to her mom, giving information like dates and locations. But Holmes made a huge mistake because he never sent the letters. But not only did he not send the letters, but he held on to them. Now, in the meantime, Marion HEDGEPETH was crazy pissed off because he never received his portion of the money from the insurance scam. So, impatient and unwilling to wait any longer, HEDGEPETH went to authorities and spilled all the beans. Now, thanks to Marion, word traveled super fast about Holmes, and a Philadelphia detective, as well as the world-famous Pinkertons, were hot on Holmes's trail. Now, I don't know how much you know about the Pinkertons, but those bastards was scary. Their motto was, "We never sleep." And if they were after you, chances are your ass was getting picked up. So Frank Geyer, the detective out of Philly, ended up tracking Holmes and the Pitezel children to a house in Toronto. And it was in that house in Toronto where the bodies of the Pitezel kids were ultimately found. The 2 girls, Alice and Nellie, had been shoved into a trunk and then asphyxiated to death. The boy, Howard Pitezel, had been drugged, dismembered, and then his body was burnt. The two Pitezel girls were buried naked in the cellar of the house. There wasn't a whole lot left of Howard Pitezel's remains. The detectives did find some teeth and some bone fragments in the chimney of the house. But like I mentioned, Pinkerton's gonna get ya, and they did ultimately catch up to Holmes in Boston on November 17th, 1894. And get this, despite all the dead bodies in his wake, and there was a lot of them, Holmes was actually held for a warrant out of Texas that had to do with the horse selling case. But after the discovery of the Pitezel children, police really started to investigate. And that's when the Chicago police entered his Englewood hotel. However, after investigating, the police in Chicago were only able to find bits and pieces of most people that had been there, and there just wasn't enough information or evidence to convict Holmes of any of the Chicago deaths. That dude was one tricky little bastard. But Philly police were tricky in their own right, and they were able to gather enough information to convict Holmes in the death of Benjamin Pitezel. Now, once Holmes was actually in jail, he made some really random claims. I mean, of course he's going to claim innocence, but then he also claimed that he was possessed by Satan. Ultimately, Holmes took his last chance to really mess with police by claiming responsibility for 28 murders. But some of the people that he claimed to kill were actually still very much alive. Promise no one's dying in my house. That was my child screaming. The thing is, though, is that while Holmes owned up to 28 murders through investigations and searching for missing persons, they actually think that his murder count was closer to about 200 people. Now, after the police broke into the castle and began digging up and investigating, the people of Englewood weren't real thrilled about its presence in the neighborhood. And so in August 1895, someone broke into the castle and set the whole place on fire. The whole castle was gutted by the flames, and by 1938, the castle was torn down. Now, I personally am not sure that Holmes ever really got what he deserved, but on May 7th, 1896, Holmes was hanged solely for the death of Benjamin Pitezel. But here's the thing. Holmes' hanging didn't go exactly as planned. His neck didn't snap when he fell from the noose, and instead, he was left to hang there for like 15 minutes before he finally died. And by Holmes's own request, his coffin was interned in cement and he was buried 10 feet underground because he was afraid of grave robbers. And that pretty much wraps up our story on the madman that was H.H. Holmes. Give me just a sec. I'm going to put on some eyelashes and I'll be right back with your final look. All right, guys, I'm back, and this is your final look. Do you like it? I'm loving it. Anyway, guys, I really hope that you had fun on this whole H.H. Holmes series. I hope that you'll come back next time. Don't forget to click like and click subscribe. Remember to always love yourselves, always be a unicorn, and I'll see you next time. Bye!